Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers. I am Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, March 3rd, 2003, and we are joined, as always, by our all-star panel of top local journalists. Let's see, we got a full house today from left to right. Josh Molina, international man of mystery and the Joe Rogan of Santa Barbara. Nick Welsh, executive editor of the Santa Barbara Independent. Ryan P. Cruz, staff writer for the Independent. Callie Fausey, also staff writer for the Independent, and Grace Kitayama of Newshawk. Actually, that was not that was counterclockwise. So if you're keeping score at home, just reverse everything I just said. All right, enough of that already. Grace, who drew the duty of writing Newshawk's very useful COVID-19 newsletter this week. And you said the cases are up 6%, which you note is likely underreported. We are, as far as the CDC is concerned, we're in the substantial range of community infection. 19 people hospitalized, and we now have suffered 760 deaths. But yet, 1 week later, Governor Prince Gavin Newsom declares an end to the state of emergency, which is kind of aligning himself with the Biden administration, which is getting the federal government out of the COVID business too. My question is the pandemic over, or are Newsom and Biden simply trying to shunt responsibility onto individuals and not take responsibility for anything that happens?
Okay, I just want to say first, I didn't actually write the COVID update this week. That was Serena last week.
February 22nd. Yes. I'm old, Grace. I don't know.
Just checking. Yeah. So the governor ended the state of emergency this week. I don't know. I don't want to make any declarations because it's still such a controversial topic. But I think when I talked to the county health department director, he was kind of aligning with what Biden and the governor said, that the pandemic is over, but the virus is still a threat. And so, just continuing to be vigilant. I asked him, my friend's going to a concert and she said she wanted to quarantine for 2 weeks before she went. And he said that was kind of an overkill, and as long as she was vaccinated, that it was not necessary to take as the same precautions we had 2 years ago last year.
What did they have to say about masks? What are we supposed to be doing with masks?
He was saying, I asked him about masks on airplanes, and the director didn't really say that it was wise, but he was also saying that just kind of in germy locations in general, it's probably wiser to wear a mask, and because of the pandemic, maybe more people will take those precautions they hadn't before to stay healthy, not just from COVID, but from a common cold or anything else.
All right, pandemic over, unless it's not, it's not Newsom or Biden's fault. Got it. All right, okay. We got it. Callie, speaking of national affairs, Representative Adam Schiff was in town this week. He's running for the U.S. Senate seat that will soon, not that soon, but soon be vacated by Dianne Feinstein, who's held it since 1993. Schiff seemed like he was pretty busy while he was here. What was he, campaigning or doing government stuff or raising money or all of the above?
Kind of all of the above. He started out on Saturday at the Ukraine rally and spoke in support of Ukraine and the U.S.'s own aid to Ukraine during the rally, and then made his way over across the street to the Santa Barbara Library for a meet and greet with people from Santa Barbara and Ventura County.
Yeah, and I heard he was also raising some money. I think he was at Bob Leaf's house for
big fundraiser,
something like that as well. He is the front runner. at least according to the couple of polls that came out this week over Representative Katie Porter, who's kind of running to his left, and Representative Barbara Lee from the Bay Area. What was your takeaway? What'd you think of Schiff and his presentation?
I thought he was very well spoken. He seemed very informed on the issues that he spoke about. Yeah, just seemed like I guess, presented himself as very eloquent and down to earth person.
Yeah. What do you have to say about Fox News or Fox Not News? According to these emails that are coming out. Did he talk about that? Did he talk about misinformation, or was that another story? I thought that was your story.
He talked a little bit about his work on the January 6th committee and also the lawsuit that's currently going on by Defamation Voting Systems against Fox News and the parent company Fox Corp about endorsing the big lie that Trump actually won the election and Biden stole the election from Trump.
Yeah, and they knew about it. Rupert Murdoch knew about it. They were doing it was a lie. Hey, Josh, you know everything about politics. The Senate election is only 20 months from today, exactly today, as a matter of fact. Who will win?
Who's
Who's going to be
win what, Jerry?
Who's going to be our next U.S. senator from California?
See, Jerry, I'm an expert on local stuff, and I don't try to
The answer
overstretch.
is Adam Schiff. Okay, you heard it here first. All right, Ryan. For the suspects in that awful alleged murder at the Wharf, the gentleman from Camarillo who was here celebrating his anniversary with his wife, we're in court, and I guess what pleaded not guilty. Both the police chief and then Randy Rouse, the mayor, when Josh and I talked to him last week, seemed pretty certain that they had this case nailed down. Did you get any sense of what the defense will be, or how much information they have that we don't know about yet?
Yeah, so it's still pretty early, and right now all we're seeing is kind of how they're aligning their defense. So they were all, it seemed like they were all co-defendants. Now it seems they're showing up separately. At least two of them are showing up separately, and one of them is represented by public defender, while the other three are represented by private attorneys that are kind of working together. So what I am seeing right now is Andrea Keith of Ridley Defense is kind of running point with the defense, and the client she's representing, she is saying there's a lot of problems in the discovery so far. So she got a big batch of 430-page discovery so far, and she says that the prosecution has some problems with identification. She said specifically her client, which was one of the men that was not a shooter but was with the group. So of course there was a group of 4 men from Santa Barbara around 20 years old, and a group of 3 juveniles from Ventura who are also being held in Santa Maria with their own charges, all in connection. So right now they're all being charged, with murder, accessory to murder. We're gonna see, I think, those charges kind of change as the trial comes, or if we start to see a deal come out, we'll see. It looks like there might be some problems with identification at this point, at least according to the defense attorney.
All right. And then we had this other incident at Shoreline Park, a stabbing or something this week? Is this,
Yeah, that was another fight that, there was reported somebody was stabbed, and then somebody showed up at Cottage Hospital with that wound. And that's another one where, 2 groups fighting and people get nervous, especially people who think that it's gang related. Of course, nobody said anybody was in a gang in that one. And even with these juveniles in the Stearns Wharf, I've been in connection with some of the families of the juveniles, and they're still pretty early too. But, they're saying my kid's not a gang member. And, that's, of course, the parents saying that, but, they're playing it like their juvenile kids were visiting Santa Barbara, and these older men from Santa Barbara kind of approached them, and it became a fight. And then ended with this man tragically dying, and that's kind of the tough part about it.
So the kids are all from Ventura and the adults are all from Santa Barbara?
Yeah, so the group of 3 juveniles is from Ventura. One of them was picked up in LA, but I believe they're all from connected to a Ventura gang, according to the police documents when they first arrested them. And then the Santa Barbara men they have connections to a West Side gang, according to the documents.
All right. And are the 4 adults, so we don't know if the 4 adults will all be tried together or separate?
We don't know at this point. It looks like at least 3 of them will be tried together, and one of them is kind of separate at the time. We don't know exactly how that's going to work out. That might be, something on the jail side of why they're being housed separate. We don't really know publicly why.
Or who's testifying against whom.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be the case.
All right, Nick, you had a piece about Supervisor Laura Capps raising a question at the board meeting, which seemed to take others by surprise, about this new state ethics law and disclosure and so on. What's that all about?
Well, a new law went into effect at the beginning of the year statewide, saying that if any elected official would have to recuse themselves from voting on a matter that would be of material benefit to any donors who gave $250 or more to their campaigns. And that is going to really
$150.
$250 is the threshold. So it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect any number of votes. If it gets down to union contracts, can you vote? Project labor agreement, can you vote? There's certain development deals where you have developers giving a lot of money to certain candidates, or you have obviously cannabis is another hot potato issue. So,
and Nick, is this a report yourself kind of thing, or is there somebody who's going to?
Well, I think that's what Laura. So this law goes into effect, and Laura is who has raised this issue in previous campaigns. She sort of raises it during a discussion about a flood control project up in Los Alamos, where the neighbors are coming unglued and launching. And she says, "Hey, by the way, we've got this bill. How do we enforce it? Do we have to, how is it going to be enforced? How does it work? We haven't gotten any information from it." So it was an interesting sort of detour from what was on the plate. And Mona Miyasato, the county's executive officer, said, "Hey, I'll get right back to you with that at a previous time." And then there was this sort of awkwardness by some of the other supervisors thinking, well, maybe we should disclose ex parte communications. That is a term for conversations that supervisors have with combatants or people with interest in various items before the board. So people who want to, bend their arm, that's who they had to disclose.
Potentially it seems like it could be a big deal, but if it's going to be like self-reporting, I wonder who's going to
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and especially how small Santa Barbara can be. How well do you know this person? How $250 is the baseline. It could be a lot of things to be disclosed.
But yeah, Nick, you mentioned the pot contributions, which of course Supervisor Williams famously took a bunch of while writing the ordinance. But he then said he wasn't going to take any more. And these are the clock only starts running January 1 of this year, correct? So he would not have to disclose it. He wouldn't have to.
And really, this is one of those open sunshine laws. The idea that if we have to get the taint of corruption out of politics. But what I worry about will happen here is that people will simply stop giving money to the candidates, and they'll give them to uncontrolled expenditure committees that don't have to report anything. And you just give it to the unions, who will then turn around and run their own independent campaigns, or whoever it is. oil companies, you name it.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's something. It ain't nothing. All right, with more to come on that. Josh, you won the hardest working man in show business weekly award. You wrested it away from Nick, but barely. Because you had 32 stories about the housing issue, which is all anybody talks about in certain venues. So rents are up, vacancies down, Goleta officials are mad at the county. But I actually thought the most intriguing story was the one you had about the Ed St. George project, the new Ed St. George project, where they were, before the Architectural Review Board again. And they said, hey, we told you last time to fix this. And they said, we ain't fixing nothing. And your time is running out because you only get to have, 2 meetings or something. So it sounds like this clash between the state requirements, the new state requirements, and Santa Barbara's sort of historic way of assessing projects.
Yeah, so SB 330 says that these developers can submit these projects and there can't be any more than 5 discretionary review meetings. And Ed's project has been before the ABR 3 times now. I'm sorry, I should say, before the ABR 3 times now. And so what that means is there's 2 meetings left. If they deny it one more time, then he'll go to the city council on appeal, and that'll be the end of it. And then ABR would actually lose some control to have kind of a final approval of it. So what Jarrett Gorwin was saying, who is representing Ed, he's saying, you need to approve this, because if you don't, you're never going to get a chance to look at it again, because we'll just take it to the council and we'll probably win on appeal, because the council is very much pro-housing council right now. And so that's probably going to happen. So what we're seeing is these design review boards not really saying, oh, well, since we can only do 5, let's give up now. They are saying, well, if you want to do that, go ahead. But there's no reason why your floor heights need to be 10 feet. They're arguing about how tall these rooms, these floors should be, from 10 to 9 feet. And so they're sort of saying, well, we're still going to stick to what we do. And whatever you do with your 5 meetings is what you do with your 5 meetings. And so that is the clash that is going on. Ed does have the power to just take it to the council and he'll win it on appeal. There's no doubt. There's nobody on that council who's going to say, well, there's one person on that council who might say that we're not going to allow this because the state is being heavy-handed. If we're talking about the difference between a foot on 4 levels, I think the council will approve that housing project.
But just a side note, but would that affect the overall height of the building to the extent that it would sort of do violence to Santa Barbara's historic height limit, or not? Or that's not.
No, it's a 4-story building. So no, we're not talking about anything over 60 feet. I think it's something like 48 feet or something is the highest part. They vary. It's not like one block, but they're staggered. And I think the highest part is something like 48 feet. But the design of it is such that they've been through all these revisions. And now it's at a point where the ABR has to say, let's either do this or not, or we'll take it to the city council, and the city council will approve it because they're very pro-housing council.
And I think it's kind of showing, the power that some of these developers are getting with this need for housing, because Ed is one of these property owners that earlier in the city council meeting this week, there's somebody complaining about a property they were renting from him and were evicted away from. So these are the same, landlords they're the ones providing housing, but they're also the ones taking away some of the stock. So it's really, that confidence of saying, well, you can tell us after 5 meetings, we're still going to go to city council. That's kind of highlighting a problem that these property managers have or property developers have. And that might need to be addressed, because if they're that confident where they can just say, you can give us
I mean, why would you do anything that the ABR has to say?
Yeah, and they had a similar develop agreement over there on Haley, where they kind of knew we have an agreement. You can't really do much to us anyway. So
it sounds to me like Ryan P. Cruz is agreeing that Santa Barbara needs a specific plan for La Cumbre Plaza, because even though other people say, oh no, it's going to take too long and we need housing now, actually that's enabling the state system to allow a developer to build 74 feet and only have 56 market rate. So I mean, that's the real challenge
Yeah,
there.
once again,
it's not
it's
just
coming back
Ed,
to,
it's
yeah,
all
we're not getting
developers.
this from private developers, and that's one of the big things with the La Cumbre, you know. It's really tough. We need lots of housing, but the market is not going to provide. If I'm a private developer and I got to provide 10%, that's the minimum I'm going to provide, unless there's an incentive for me to get more. And I'm not even a developer. I'm not greedy, but I know that's the business way to think. So,
Well,
it's-
I think
it's
I
setting
agree you're not a developer, but I'm pretty sure you're greedy. That's, I mean, just so we have the record straight. And Josh, why are people in Goleta mad at the county?
Because the county's trying to throw all of its housing into the edges of Goleta rather than Montecito. Gee, I wonder why that is. The county is upset because the housing element proposes to rezone agriculture land on the borders of Goleta. And Goleta years ago tried to get these properties into their sphere of influence so they could protect them from being rezoned into housing. So City of Goleta is saying we built 1,400 units over the last 8 years. We do care about housing. We want to be part of this cycle, but why is there no housing in Montecito? And then the county says, oh, well, because we want to build housing where there are jobs, where there are services. And if you build it out in expensive Montecito, that's going to be out of reach for most people. But I have to say, and this is what James Carriaco and Luz Reyes Martin said in their letter, which is, I mean, there's a ton of people who work in Montecito who are cleaning homes, who are gardeners, who are working at hotels, who are working class individuals. So when we talk about putting housing where the jobs are, why are we talking about putting housing where the jobs are only in Goleta, but we act like there aren't thousands of individuals who actually maintain the infrastructure of Montecito homes and restaurants and a whole variety of services in that community? And so that's what they're saying. Hey, spread it out. Das Williams, after being pressured, has now said, I'm talking to a property owner to build employee housing in Montecito. That's all I've heard. That's all he told me. I think it's in a letter that James wrote, the city of Goleta, or James and Luce wrote. So there's that, but there's no scandal here. But the thing is, Goleta is saying, why are we listening to these principles of building housing where the jobs are by reducing vehicle miles traveled, by putting housing where people work? Why are we saying yes, but only near Goleta? Why are we not doing that in the other part of the county?
There's this big project in Carp as well. Who wrote it? Somebody wrote about it. Grace, did you?
that's
read
over
it?
at Baylor too.
Huh?
Oh, the Baylor property?
Yeah, Grace wrote. Oh, you wrote a piece about that. What?
No, no.
Huh? You wrote about it? Who wrote about it? Grace wrote.
Excuse me, I wrote about it, and it's similar. The city's mad that they won't get kind of like tax revenue because it'd be a county project, but they would still kind of have their economy stimulated from the housing being built. And addition to like housing in Montecito and all the people who work there, because like those people are commuting from not Goleta, but like Ventura, even farther. So I don't know.
And there's not much. I mean, there is no revenue on that because what? It's an abandoned school district site or something like that.
Yeah, it was previously for the school district. Yeah, and then they didn't build it because there wasn't enough students in school.
Yeah. But there's a lot of unhappiness in Carp. I mean, there's a lot of people who are very unhappy about that because they feel like it's getting shoved down their throat. Gee, that's never happened to people in Carp before. What about that? Let me think about what else of that.
You're relentless, Jerry.
No, I just something occurred to me. I can't remember what it is. All right. Grace, you had the school board. Oh, Nick, I wanted to ask you on the housing thing. this transitional housing project that the Soups approved up in Santa Maria. Was it Santa Maria or Lompoc?
It was up in Santa Maria. It's up by the Bessarabia Government Center.
Is that, but I mean, that's not like any kind of model for housing. It's specifically a homeless.
This is a homeless, basically the county is putting its land up into play and saying, we will use our land to build transitional temporary housing for the homeless people. So it's the Dignity Moves model that we have here on Santa Barbara Street, where people have these prefabricated rooms that they can shut the door and lock it. In this case, you can, up in Santa Maria, you can have pets, you can have partners, you can have storage. It's you know, and it's down here. We have 33 units up there they're proposing. The numbers vary from 91 to 94, depending on who's talking. But they're shooting for 400 of these units, which would make a significant dent. That would make a significant dent in the housing for people who don't have it right now.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I got distracted here for a moment. But how many pets and how big? I mean, say for example, someone had a rescue horse, and they you know.
Jerry, if you want to move into one of those with,
oh no, I want them to take
rescue
the horse. I want them to take the horse. Actually, more than one. If
I think a horse might be too big,
Okay.
but you know, maybe we could get like a miniature donkey from like the Banshees of Inisfarin, and
or from Hope Ranch. There's
Yeah.
people I know. I've heard that have those in Hope Ranch as well. All right, Grace. The school board approved a bunch of money. I guess they approved a bunch of money for some special summer school program that's specifically aimed at learning loss, pandemic era learning loss. What's that about?
Yeah, so 1.3 million
Now that
across,
the pandemic's over, so.
but the virus remains a threat. So it's 1.3 million across the school district. So it's for elementary through high school. And then, so high school always had summer school, but the elementary school programs are new. And so according to like the STAR testing, the standardized testing, they take like 3 times a year. The levels were like as high as 72%, or 72% of students weren't performing at what was expected of the grade level. And so the program was started last year, and so it's just continuing. And 4 weeks isn't a lot, but it made a dent in like the percentage, and kids forget so much stuff over the summer, even before the pandemic happened. So I think it's good that, the district is putting more effort into it. Yeah.
But Nick, you agree with me, do you not, that the real fundamental underlying problem here, and the pandemic has made worse, is of course that we don't use the science of reading to teach literacy, but rather continue to cling to the discredited Lucy Calkins model. You can just say yes, it's okay.
You know what? I think that is a problem, but I have a hunch the problem is even bigger than that.
No, maybe. All right. And then we got this cover story on the Independent this week about burgers. And Callie, everybody went out and had a burger, and I assume it was paid for by Marianne Partridge. But you got the Fala burger at Foxdale Kitchen, which I understand is not a burger at all, is it?
No, it's not your traditional burger. It's made with falafel instead of beef. That's why I chose it. I personally don't eat beef. So yeah, so it was the perfect assignment for me. And it was really good. You know, I feel like a lot of people might be a little bit hesitant to try anything that's, not full of meat, but it was actually a really good sandwich.
But did they market it as a burger, even though it's not a burger?
they do market it as a burger, and it has a lot of, you know, your classic burger components, like avocado, lettuce, pickles, tomato. But yeah, it's not a traditional beef burger, but it was still really good, and it was very filling.
All right, and Nick, so the significance for those all of the places that you guys wrote about have specials on burgers this week, correct? Is that
Yeah.
right?
They all agreed to reduce the prices of their burgers for this week.
And you got 2 burgers. Why was that?
I don't really know.
Did they just brought them?
They thought he was too skinny.
Yeah, I was getting too skinny. That was what they were thinking. You know, this is just a part of our effort to promote the beef industry. You know, people aren't eating enough.
Except for
I mean,
Callie.
I have to say,
Come on, Callie, get with the program.
I had 2 burgers. Each one is a third of a pound. Now, do I really need a third of a pound?
Which did you prefer? The spice?
That's 2/3 of a pound.
I mean, really, that's just too much.
Yeah. So you didn't like the spicy Cajun burger?
I like that one the best.
Yeah. Okay. And then Ryan, you got the smashed burger at the Padaro Grill, which
I got to sit out at Padaro Grill, you know, before the dispensaries out there, before all the traffic comes, right?
That's
I got to sit by
Well,
the
you
beach.
can still
It was
find
really nice.
parking,
I got to enjoy the burger.
Yeah, you didn't see Dennis Bazanish sitting there, did you?
No, I did not see them. I didn't see any riffraff, you know, either. So
All right. Nick, real quick, your rant about Greca Oil, which is a name we haven't heard of for a while. What happened there?
Well, Grace Oil was sort of the poster child of criminal malfeasance by the oil industry here for about 10 years. And they were just an ongoing oil spill that wasn't ever getting cleaned up. And there's just been one enforcement action after the next, and it became sort of ad nauseum. And the last week, a federal judge issued a $65 million sanction against them for contaminating. There was 12 oil spills, and I think they found that 10 of them violated the Clean Water Act, and that ultimately.
But there's no company left to pay it.
There's no, the company is so bad they had to change their name. So it used to be Greca Oil, and everybody knew it, and then it was like they had to go into witness protection. They were so bad that they now are HVI Cat Canyon, but they declared bankruptcy in 2019.
They don't have any money either.
So where are you going to get that $65 million? I think it's a nice gesture.
Well, who's going to pay that? Nobody's going to pay the $65 million.
You know, it's one of those headlines that doesn't have a follow-up story. So
and your point was, well, why didn't the judge then make it $1 billion while he was at it?
The judge could have done it a maximum of $184 million. I think that was the max he could have done. And you know, if you're going for a rhetorical point, you may as well go whole hog, and not try to be, you know, in the middle. Not because being in the middle will be a waste of time here.
Well, your column, as usual, is very interesting, and we should point out, the top local columnist 2 years running. But I was why did you put the judge's name in there? I mean, age, 61-year-old Joe. What was that? You had a lot of numbers in that sentence, and it's like you wanted to get one more in there.
It was a 65-page opinion and $65 million, and I just figured, what the hell, put in the fact that he was 61 years old.
So it was because it was in the 60s. All right.
It was in the 60s.
Callie, is that something they teach at the Independent, that you're supposed to do any number that's vaguely related? You put that in a sentence too. Josh, who you got on a podcast?
I wanted to hear her answer, Jerry. Why would you cut her off? Come on.
Well, because she muted herself, so I figured she didn't want to answer that question. Go ahead. Somebody go ahead. I don't care. Somebody who's not muted, preferably.
On my podcast, I have Francois Dijon, a commercial real estate broker, and we're going to talk all things commercial real estate, which seems to be a popular topic. But we got a lot of trends going on: Camino Real, Coast Village Road, Upper State Street, obviously Paseo Nuevo, downtown, Coomer Plaza, and it all connects with housing. So we're going to talk about all that.
All right, Nick, what do you got going? Anything?
I got more oil.
More oil? All right.
We had Plains Pipeline show up at the Planning Commission this week, saying that they wanted to put on the safety valves, which had they been there 8 years ago, would have prevented the spill from happening. But they fought that in federal court and won way back in the day. But this time the environmentalists were saying, no, we don't want your stinking safety valves, because what that's going to do is be the slippery slope for reactivating the existing pipeline, which your good friend Barry Capello testified is 180 miles of Swiss cheese.
But wouldn't I mean, the valves would still be good, right? I mean, that would be a good thing.
The valves would be good, but the problem is that there would be what it would effectively do if we approve those valves. That is the last chance we have to say boo about the reactivation of the existing pipeline, and that if the pipeline is reactivated and Exxon gets to ignite its plant, the greenhouse gas numbers of Santa Barbara County are going to increase by something like 70%. So there are some planning commissioners that say, a 70% increase in greenhouse gases, that is not an over-the-counter ministerial permit. And this is sort of the camel's nose under the tent. So you're saying here, we're going to put these nice safety valves on that everybody should be for, but the ramifications of it are a little bit more troubling.
Callie, as you know, in the Refugio spill a few years ago, well, it's more than a few now. What was that, 2014, something like almost 10 years. Nick Welsh had the big scoop of that story, that there were no valves, in fact, and if they had them, there would have been, for which he was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. Does he talk about that a lot in the office? Or not? What do you got going, Callie? And does he talk about it a lot now? Does he just kind of, put it into conversation as from time? I was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize for that story.
I've actually, in my time as independent, I've learned more about Nick from other people than I have from Nick himself. So no.
All right.
What
are you working on?
I'm working on a few things. I went to the county's First 5 event last week, and I'm drafting up a semi-large piece about that, about how the county's school district boards and governance teams really want to get the level of children entering kindergarten ready for the curriculum up to 70% by 2030, because right now most children in the county are entering kindergarten from preschool or at the age when they're supposed to enter kindergarten, not ready. Only about 25% of students right now have like the early educational opportunities they need to actually be ready to participate and succeed in kindergarten through 12 system.
All right. Grace, what are you working on?
What I'm working on for tomorrow is the Santa Barbara airport is going to have an airplane pull where 10 people are going to try to pull not a 747, 737, I think, like 10 feet. And so, or no, 20 feet. So I've been asking everyone this week, do you think you could pull an airplane 20 feet?
Me and Josh could do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't need anyone else.
Oh,
This will
Man,
be part of the self-care
Me
issue.
and Josh versus everybody else.
Ryan and Josh versus the world.
so one of my first stories at the Chronicle when I caught on it in 1977, there was a guy who was like an old strongman type of person who hauled a replica of the sailing ship that Sir Francis Drake was sailing when he discovered the Bay Area across the bay by himself.
Was it made out of balsa wood?
And no, it wasn't. He did it,
Is that Josh Molina?
No, it wasn't Jack LaLanne. It was actually he put down Jack LaLanne a lot. But anyway, and then so we got done, and I didn't know why I was there, but I said, well, why did you do that? And he, of course, said to prove that an old man can pull his own weight. But I don't know if
Does that have special resonance for you now, Jerry?
well, it does have special resonance because I'm actually going through my old clips, and the guy was only 60. So yes, it
Oh,
does.
man.
Are you sure he wasn't 61?
He might have been related to that judge. Ryan, what are you working on?
More dispatches from the dark world of rental tenant evictions. I got some more.
Oh yeah. I mean, but you mentioned that word renovictions.
Renovictions. Yeah.
Real
Josh
quickly,
had
what's that?
it's a tactic that's completely legal for people to come in and buy a whole apartment complex and renovate. I'm gonna renovate these apartments, raise the price, so kind of pricing out the people that are originally there, so they won't be able to afford it again, and a new type of tenant and it's just changing the landscape of our housing environment. So I got that, and I got another one I'm really excited about a tradition that 1,000-year-old tradition that is alive in Santa Barbara through Oaxacan community here. That's all I'll tell you about it for now.
All right. Are there burgers related to that one or not?
They might eat some burgers, but
There might be. All right. Okay. All right. Well, Grace Kitayama and Callie Fausey and Ryan P. Cruz, Nick Welsh, and Josh Molina. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for watching. And we will see you next time on Newsmakers.
All right. You
Thank
take care.
you.